Should you do a newsletter? You know, I struggled with that for a long time, and I think I was early on in doing an e-newsletter. And I've been doing it for about 20 years, and I've learned a lot of things from doing it. And so I want to talk to you about some of the things that I learned about. So the first thing is, when you meet somebody, if you have a way to collect their information and then you can keep them, you stay in touch with them on a regular basis, then that is the best way to build longer, deeper relationships and have repeat customers. Most people don't do that. They make a sale, and then after the sale, they're kind of done with it. So I wanted some system that I could collect people's information. And for me, I wanted to not only collect information from my customers, I wanted to learn how to collect information from people I just met in general. Being in the mortgage business, everybody at some point in time potentially can be a customer. So a friend of mine said, why don't you do an e-newsletter? Because before, people were doing them mostly just print newsletters. So we started playing around with that. And one of the things that we discovered early on was you can't really put a newsletter out about your particular business. In other words, if your CPA is sending you a newsletter all the time, or your real estate agent sending you a newsletter all the time, and it's just about their stuff, after a while, you kind of don't want to listen to it. You don't want to read it. You don't want to open it. Probably going to delete them unless you really like them. And so it's too much information, and it's not always relevant for you. So what we came up with was the idea of, how can I put out a newsletter that the community would enjoy reading? And so we came up with the idea of putting in community type events. Hey, there's a charity golf tournament. There's a rodeo in town. There's music at a particular event, or there's a parade, whatever. And so what happened was, we found that people would not delete us if it was community focused. So think about that in your community. There's probably the only thing out there that might give people an idea of what's going on every week is maybe your local newspaper. And most of those are drying up, and a lot of those aren't really focusing too much on that because they can't make money on it. So we found it to be just outstanding. Our open rate is probably about 25%, which is pretty good. And we get a lot of click-throughs, which means we do an article and it says something like, rodeo in town, and then it has a link where you can click and go read more or buy a ticket. So our click-throughs are pretty high. And that's kind of how we manage our read if somebody's spending a lot of time going and looking at that particular event, so that we know, hey, we need more of those kind of things. And so I have someone in my office do that, and we go on like Constant Contact or MailChimp. You just build a form, you kind of build a header, and you build a footer, and then you kind of have a place to put 3 or 4 articles. It's real simple. You just put those 3 or 4 articles in there. And then what'll start happening for you is, once you start putting that newsletter out, people in the community will then say, hey, will you put this on your newsletter? So what happens over time is, you really don't have to go look real hard for the information. Your friends and your customers will send you their stuff. Hey, my girls are selling Girl Scout cookies, or hey, I'm with the chamber and we're having a golf tournament. Can you put that on your newsletter? And so we started collecting anybody that we met. We started grabbing their business cards. We started getting their information, and we started putting them on the newsletter. And so our newsletter runs around about 6,000 or 7,000 people. The biggest problem that we found is that when you collect people's emails, try to get their personal email and not their business email, because what happens over time, people are working at this company, and then they move to another company, and so that email's no good anymore. If you can get their Gmail or Yahoo or something like that, they'll stay on the list longer. So anyway, start doing a newsletter, and then at the bottom, kind of in the footer, that's where you can kind of say something like, hey, Hometown Mortgage, and if you're buying a house, we'd love to talk to you. If you need to refinance and need some cash out for something, please give us a call. You can kind of change a little something on that each time, or you can run a little, if the rates are down or whatever's going on in your industry, you can put a little something towards the end. But at the top, the 2 or 3 or 4 main articles are all about what's going on in the community. When you get out there and you start really trying to gather information, what happens is, you now have an asset that you can use in the community. So now when I go meet somebody, like somebody's opening a new business in town, I can go to that person while say I walk by and there's a new retail store, and I can tell they're in there working on it, or a new restaurant opening up. I now walk into the business, introduce myself to the owner, and tell them, hey, I've got a newsletter. It goes out to 5,000 to 7,000 people in the community. Would you like for me to put something out about your business? And I mean, 99% of the time, it's like, yes, please, thank you. And so then I get information from them. I might do a little short video with them with my phone. Hey, meet Johnny, he's opening a new pizza place. Y'all need to come see him, blah, blah, blah. And I'll put that in my newsletter, but then I also put that person on my newsletter. So I get to pick up another person. I get to promote his business, and the community loves it. So it's an awesome way when you meet new people to bring an asset that you have to the conversation to help them promote their business. Because, one of my theories is I want to give all the time. And if I give a lot, eventually some people will give back to me. And I don't know which ones are going to do that, but I want to give to the community. I want my community to succeed and strive. And so we have a sense of community in my community because there's a lot of people doing that kind of stuff. So if you're not doing a newsletter, do that. It doesn't have to be about the community. It can be about something that you're passionate about. For instance, I met a lady one day that was a real estate agent. She had one of those little dogs that she carried around in one of those little briefcases or whatever. And her thing was, she said, I just can't take my dog in every restaurant. And she had this dog with her all the time. And I said, well, then maybe that's your newsletter. Your newsletter is about where you can take your dog. Where are the dog-friendly places? And you can spotlight one place every week and send out a newsletter. That's another thing. You can do it weekly instead of monthly or quarterly if that's good information for people. So she started doing that, and her real estate business went up. So now every time she saw somebody with a dog, she'd say, hey, I've got a great dog newsletter. Give me your email. I'll put you on my newsletter. So now she has an asset she could do. Had another friend of mine, he was into beer. He's into all the craft beers. And so that was part of what he did, was talk about the different craft beers. Another person was into wine, did that. Another person was into cars, and they would go to car shows and they would talk about cars and interview people about cars. And so he would take all the car guys and put them on there. Or if he met anybody, he's like, you like cars? Yeah, well, you need to get on my newsletter. So that's the way you need to build your newsletter, based around something you're passionate about. I'm passionate about my community, so it works for me. Find something that works for you. And then, oh, by the way, I'm in this business. Hope that helps you. If you need any more information, don't hesitate to call me. I'll be happy to help you. All of these ideas are in my new book, A Few Big Ideas. If you need somebody to come to your place and speak to your folks and help them understand how they can grow their business, give me a holler. I'd love to come help.